Thank you for staying tuned. The world news at 6 begins outside the shores of Nigeria, where a hospital in the Israeli town of Beersheba has been hit as Iran fired a barrage of missiles at the country, with the conflicts between the two nations continuing into a seventh day. Iran said it had targeted a military site close to the hospital, not the facility itself. With strikes being reported in several locations across Israel, the country's health ministry said 271 people had been injured. After visiting the Soroka Medical Center today, Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz said Iran's supreme leader can no longer be allowed to exist. Meanwhile, Iran's military said it had targeted Iran's nuclear sites, including the inactive Arak heavy water reactor and Natanz facility. You will recall that the conflict began on June 13 when Israel launched attacks on Iranian nuclear sites and killed several top generals and nuclear scientists. Still on the world news at 6, right here on Voice of the People, 90.3 FM. Justice Chizoba Urji of the Federal Capital Territory, FCT High Court today, granted Kogi Central Senator Natasha Akpoti Udwara a 50 million naira bail after she pleaded not guilty to alleged defamation. The female lawmaker was granted bail with one shorty who must have a landed property in Abuja and must be a responsible resident of the FCT. The judge adjourned the case to September 23, 2025 for trial. Earlier, the lawmaker was arraigned by the federal government on 3 counts bordering on alleged defamation of Senate President Godswill Akpabio and former governor of Kogi State, Yaya Bello. Security operatives were visible around the court, with the proceeding attended by the lawmaker's husband, former Minister of Education, Obi Ezekwesili, activist Aisha Yusufu, and numerous supporters. Giving her plea, the prosecuting lawyer, David Kasve, asked Justice Orji to remand her to prison till the determination of the charge. However, Senator Natasha's lawyer, Roland Otaru, sought and got permission to move the bail application for the defendant on the grounds that it was matured for hearing, having been served on the prosecution and having joined the issues with each other. In a very recent development, a federal high court sitting in Abuja has admitted into evidence a report by the Department of State Services DSS allegedly linking the leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu, to the killing of 186 police officers and the destruction of 164 police stations during the #EndSARS protest. Justice James Omotosho admitted the report during the resumed hearing in Kanu's terrorism trial today. The report was tendered by the prosecuting counsel at Degboiga Awomolo, a senior advocate of Nigeria, through the 5th prosecution witness codenamed Mr. EEE for security reasons. Led in evidence by Awomolo, the witness, a DSS operative, told the court that he was part of a team deployed to the southeast and other parts of the country to gather information and compile reports on the violence that erupted during the #EndSARS movement. He also said the mandate was to collect records of the destruction of public property and the deaths of security personnel allegedly incited by Kanu's statement. The court admitted as exhibits a damage assessment report, death certificates of some security officers, and a certificate of compliance tendered through the witness by Awomolo.
Meanwhile, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu today arrived Kaduna State for the second leg of his 3-state working tour aimed at commissioning major developmental projects. Well, the Boeing 737 jet conveying the president touched down at the military airport in Mando at exactly 1:27 p.m., where he was received by a high-powered delegation of government officials and traditional rulers. On hand to welcome the president were Speaker of the House of Representatives Tajuddin Abbas, Deputy Senate President Barrow Jibrin, Kaduna State Governor Ubasani, and the Emir of Zazzau, Ahmed Nuhu Bamali. The president was honored with a military guard of honor led by the Nigerian Air Force Band. During the one-day visit, the president is scheduled to commission several legacy projects, which includes the Institute of Skill Acquisition and Development in Riga Chukun, a 300-bed specialist hospital located in Millennium City, 100 compressed natural gas buses to boost Kaduna's intra-city transport. The president is also expected to attend a grand civic reception at Murutala Square, organized in his honor by the Kaduna state government. Now, still on a very recent development, internally displaced persons from the water crisis on Thursday took to the streets of Akpoti to protest worsening conditions at their camp, alleging hunger, neglect, and the diversion of relief materials meant for their survival. The aggrieved IDPs blocked the busy road near the Akpoti International Market, causing traffic gridlock as they demanded swift government intervention and accountability from relief agencies. According to the protesting IDPs, at least 2 people recently died in the camp due to starvation and the deteriorating health environment. Some allege that food items and mattresses, including those reportedly donated by the senior pastor of Dunamis International Gospel Center, Dr. Paul Enenche, never reached them. They also exclaim they are suffering and that their people are dying. The protesters accuse officials overseeing camp management of hoarding and possibly diverting donated materials. They urged the Benue state government and relevant humanitarian agencies to investigate the alleged misconduct and ensure transparency in the distribution of aid. As of press time, government officials are yet to release a formal statement regarding the protest and the allegations. Now, in a coordinated move to address a worsening food crisis in Nigeria, the 36 state governors under the umbrella of the Nigeria's Governors Forum have agreed to collaborate with the federal government to dismantle illegal checkpoints, harmonize levies, and improve interstate trade. The decision was announced after the closed-door meeting with the National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu, who obviously at the time, and the Minister of Defense Mohammed Badaru Abubakar, which obviously was held on Wednesday night. Reading the communique after the meeting, the Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu said the governors unanimously acknowledged that the current proliferation of illegal checkpoints and multiple taxation were aggravating food price inflation and disrupting the national food supply chain. In the meantime, the Nigerian Senate has vowed to closely monitor the disbursement and implementation of the 1.48 trillion naira budget submitted by the sole administrator of Rivers State, Vice Admiral Ibok Etta Ibas. The chairman of the Senate ad hoc committee on the oversight of emergency governance in Rivers, Senator Okpeyemi Bamidele, promised Nigerians that the legislature will ensure that every naira allocated in the 2025 appropriation bill delivers tangible results. He stated that the committee would track budget performance over the coming months to ensure transparency, timely implementation, and value for money. The Senate leader also used the session to clarify misconceptions surrounding the federal government's emergency rule in Rivers State. He stated that the temporary measure declared by the president is not a substitute for democratic governance but a constitutional intervention aimed at restoring stability in Rivers State. Now, the Nigerian Navy has successfully repelled a coordinated attack by Boko Haram ISWAP insurgents on Thursday in the naval base Lake Chad in Borno State. The terrorists commenced their attack at about 2 a.m. on Wednesday, 18th of June 2025, with the intention to destroy the newly acquired swamp buggies procured by the Borno State government for waterways clearance in the Lake Chad Basin and other military equipment in the naval base. However, they were effectively repelled by the swift and decisive response of Nigerian Navy personnel of Naval Base Lake Chad with reinforcement from land and air component of Operation Hardin-Kai. The superior tactical coordination and firepower of the Nigerian Navy personnel and other components of Operation Hardin-Kai for the terrorist plans, resulting in significant losses for the insurgents, and many were neutralized. The bravery and professionalism demonstrated by the Nigerian Navy personnel underscore the Nigerian Navy's unwavering commitment to safeguarding the nation's territorial integrity and neutralizing all threats to peace in the Northeast. You're currently listening to the World News at 6 right here on Voice of the People, 90.3 FM. We'll take a very short break. When we return, more news, and then we'll head into a news analysis segment. To kindly stay with us.
Welcome back. You're still listening to the World News at 6 right here on Voice of the People, 90.3 FM. In a recent development, a group of angry youth have turned down billboards bearing the images of President Bola Tinubu and Kaduna State Governor Uba Sani during the president's official visit to the state. The billboards, which were erected to welcome the president to Kaduna, were vandalized. Videos circulating online show agitated youths pulling down some of the structures, although the motive behind the act is yet to be ascertained. However, the actions may not be unconnected to the growing public frustration over rising inflation and economic hardship since President Tinubu assumed office in 2023. President Tinubu is in Kaduna to inaugurate key development projects, including a 300-bed specialist hospital situated at Millennium Square. The newly opened facility has been named the Bola Ahmed Tinubu Specialist Hospital.
In the same vein, youth in Delta State have taken to the streets to destroy all of Tinubu's campaign billboards erected in different parts of the state. Other politicians whose campaign posters align with Tinubu were not spared either, including that of the state governor. The youth remained unfazed despite the presence of heavily armed military personnel in patrol vans deployed on a mission to disperse them. Their grievance is connected to the nationwide hardship and suffering, as well as a lack of basic infrastructure such as electricity, portable water, and good roads. The youth are angry that after staging a peaceful protest over the absence of electricity in their community for more than 16 years, the only response they received from the government was the deployment of heavily armed military officers to silence them rather than addressing the marginalization they have endured for years. Now, Choma Innocent, I would say that the event, specifically, let's start from the pulling down of billboards that has the possible inscription of the All Progressives Congress, pictures of the president, both in, I think this is Katsina, right? Or Kaduna State. Kaduna State, and as well as Delta State. Do you think this will make any difference? We have seen instances where on election day, on that particular day, these same youth are usually mobilized, bought over, and then they vote the same people that they're actually clamoring against. At this particular point in time, the president still has 2 years to go before the next election. So what if he's able to do what is necessary that placates, the upset of these individuals? Don't we think that when we may see a turnaround? You could realize that in Benue State, just before this dastardly act, we saw persons protesting in favor of the government of the day. So this particular action, does this stipulate that possibly Delta and Kaduna State for 2027 has been lost to whatever other opposition political party? Or these are just rants due to the emotional circumstances currently bedeviling these regions?
Esther, when we talk to some of our political analysts, they will say things like, we have a protest industry in Nigeria. I remember when the emergency rule was imposed on Rivers State, there were people protesting against it and there were people protesting for it. How do you protest for something? Don't you protest against? But then let's come back to the issue at hand. Pulling down the billboards that has the face of the president and any other person in the state who is an APC person, like the governor.
The state
this
governor.
Just boils down to one thing. Nigerians are angry. And if the political elites continue to act like they cannot see this anger, it will be quite unfortunate. The APC, from what we've seen, seem to be more focused on 2027. And from the way it seems like no one is really listening to what Nigerians are saying, that it's giving that attitude of, there's this Yoruba song that says, even if you don't vote, we have entered.
Sure.
So that is the attitude that it is giving. But there is no denying the fact that the people are angry. This anger stems from hunger. It stems from inflation. It stems from insecurity. It stems from the body language of the political elite, because they feel like these people, them not send us. So why should we send them? The only way they can vent their frustration is on these billboards, because of course this is not affecting the president in any way. The next day, one company or organization will just come up and fix it back, and then in 2027, everybody will forget about it. But let us not actually overlook the main issues, which is that Nigerians are not happy. Esther, I don't know how to put it, but when the
Chima,
father of the house
you don't have to.
is not paying attention to his hungry
you
children.
don't have to overemphasize. It's not even about father of the house and hungry children. Chima, staple food items are so expensive. The other day, I played a vox pop of some of the, one of our correspondents who went to the market to ask as to how much food prices are. The federal government told us, or rather the president told us, that food prices have crashed significantly.
Esther, it's not the president that will tell us that food prices have crashed. We are the ones that will tell him.
The realistic thing here is the fact that that's not what the case is. It's a very different situation that is actually unveiling itself. Choma, you would try to understand what the priority of Nigerians are. If you go on social media at this point in time, you're seeing campaigns of propaganda against different politicians, propaganda towards and against 2027. It's the focus of the day amongst our youths are meant to viably call out the government and say we need all of this to be implemented as soon as possible. So if Delta State youth are protesting, Kaduna is protesting, well, in time past, we haven't actually seen if any of those protests would take or make any significant difference. But the thing is the fact that at this particular point in time, while the presidency is telling us that food prices have crashed, they are actually not the truth. There's huge inflation severely, and that's why the 36 state governors have decided to come to possibly assist the federal government in saying how they could ameliorate this. The other time, when it was really bad, when fuel subsidy was, abruptly removed, we heard how the governors of these different states set up different palliative measures to curtail this. In Lagos, they set up food banks. They also set up markets where food were actually subsidized. But the question is, how long will this continue? How long would Nigerians continue to sustain with this? How far and how well will the administration give accountability of itself? Like I said, sometimes we say the buck stops at the table of the president, but the inadequacy or the inefficiency of the governors, the ministers, the House of Rep members, and the senators brings to question, what are they actually doing at the grassroots level? You could hear that the Benue State residents who are protesting about hunger and the unavailability of basic food items. Apparently, the welfare and donations being done by good Nigerians, those who try to empathize with the situation, they are saying they haven't gotten anything. They haven't gotten anything.
This is not
so
even
they
the
have
first time we're
taken
hearing about
advantage
diversion
of
what
but at this
IDPs should be
crucial
getting.
time. No, with what happened in Benue, how could anyone divert relief materials to themselves? Are you not applying a cost on yourself? I don't understand. Again, they always say that when we complain about the government, Nigerians too do. They do themselves. They take advantage of any situation to impede hunger, to impede hardship on themselves. Any little scenario, they fluctuate the market, and it's the end result. We are the end result that feel the implication of this. Choma, today, the Federal Capital Territory High Court in Abuja actually granted the suspended senator representing Kogi Central, Senator Natasha Akpoti, a bail of the sum of 50 million naira, and one shorty who must be a person of reasonable integrity. Justice Chizoba Orji was the one who made a declaration in a ruling after taking arguments for and against the bail application from the parties in the suit. Now, based on the charges from the federal government, Akpabio and the former Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello, they were the nominal complainants. Now they are alleging that Natasha Akpoti claimed Bello had conspired with Akpabio to orchestrate her assassination, and that these claims were made in a live broadcast. Well, she has been granted bail. She's definitely not going to, her trial will commence possibly in July, or yes, thereabout, very soon. There were speculations that she may have been imprisoned. Possibly they expected the judge to imprison her or not grant her bail.
What I read was that the judge, when that was brought up, the judge was like, no, you can't do that. Let's not do that. But then that brings us the question, if this was not a senator, even though suspended senator of the Federal Republic, if this was just an ordinary Nigerian with nothing to their name, would the same goodwill have been extended to them? So we really have to look at that, how we treat people, even though, she's almost now the face of the oppressed Nigerian woman.
And actually is in contempt of court. Up to today, he has not responded to court order. In the National Rescue Movement case, actually, they were supposed to serve him a document from the court for contempt. They said that the inner quarters has been barricaded by security officials. They've not been able to give him or serve him. And this is the second or the third time that contempt of court order has been planned to be served to the INEC chair. And up till now, the INEC chair has not responded to that. We've not heard anybody say anything as to him actually appearing in court or his contempt of court. Today, the case of Nnamdi Kanu was also brought up. And you do know that all the cases against him has been closed, specifically the cases of terrorism. So basically, what the federal government is actually stipulating is this: his trial will commence on the 18th, but there were other issues that were considered in that terrorism trial. Chama Innocent, first of all, before the case was closed against Nnamdi Kanu, they said the witness that was brought in by the federal government, most of the statements and reports he made were not statements that he had direct evidence with. They were basically newspaper clippings, stories heard on the news or newspapers. They asked questions, as Nnamdi Kanu's legal counsel asked him, what is your evidence beyond I heard, I read, were you there? What is your first-hand primary evidence?
Who have first-hand experience of whatever it is that they want to come and talk about. But it's not the part of me I don't understand is reports linking Nnamdi Kanu to NSAS violence.
I don't know. Although it was because of the broadcast that we heard at the time when certain statements were made. So that was how they turned
statements.
They now turned NSAS, which we know it was unplanned. They turned it to something else.
NSAS was really organic.
But they turned it to something else. They named it as something else. They made it seem like
you
a
remember
particular.
When someone came and said it was the obedience. That
was not even the other
NSAS or something like that.
They turned it to the fact that it was a means through which the Southeasterners wanted to take over the government. It became something else. But Sharma, when somebody closes a case in a trial, it means that they have finished presenting all their evidence, witnesses, and arguments to the court. And this is a development that came after the fifth prosecution witness testified only as EEE due to security concerns. This was what he did in court. Now, the witness was led in evidence and later questioned by Kanu's lawyer, Onyechi Ikpeazu, in a session presided over by Justice James Omotosho. Now, the government's lawyer, Chief Adigboyega Awomolo, informed the court that the prosecution counsel had called all 5 witnesses it planned to rely on, so they were done. He noted that the evidence presented, including video materials showing the activities of Nnamdi Kanu, was enough to support the charges of terrorism against him. So based on this, he formally closed the case. But the lead defense of Nnamdi Kanu actually notified the court of the defense team's plan to file a no-case submission. This move means that they will argue that the government has not provided enough evidence to or for the case to proceed, and that the filing will be done in a later date. So they ask questions like, what is your verifiable evidence to prove all of these allegations? Were you there? Were you present? What was your own personal investigation? I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
I do understand
the affidavits presented, beyond the fact that, okay, you saw that you were able to have a first hand on the transmitter that was brought in and all the other technical gadgets that he brought in. They made statements that other persons too import all of those gadgets. Okay, you brought in all the broadcasts, but how can you verify that based on his broadcast, certain instances occurred because of it? So one of them were like, oh, I got this report from the newspaper. I got this report from the news. You did not really truly
the media.
Exactly. You did not categorically. You weren't there. What in-depth investigation did you carry beyond all of the broadcasts which he did openly? And then they also said that based on the first time he was arrested, he had no legal representative. So most of the statements that were made, according to Nnamdi Kanu's legal representative, they said he made those statements under duress. So how can you admit that in court if you had no lawyer present? It's almost like you compel somebody to say what they're not supposed to say. But so far, how would you describe this trial to be, though? Would you consider the fact that, fairly enough, now that they changed the justice, the course has proceeded well? So far, no hamper. Today I saw Omoyele Sowore in the court because Nnamdi Kanu appeared in court. Anytime he comes in court, they barricade everywhere. They know no other case
and you can't
can go on.
Why that is happening.
Do you know how much they pay per anytime he appears in court? The federal government's taxpayers' money that goes into bringing him to court, moving him around and all that. They barricade everywhere. And I think Omoyele Sowore was complaining. We saw videos of that, him saying, I have a case here too. Why are you barricading me? Why are you stopping me? Other persons felt that he just likes drama.
Case, past case.
But
And that's the truth.
Where would
When
he
it
run
comes
to?
to Moyele Sowore and Nnamdi Kanu right now, we know who the federal government is focusing more on. And of course, the reason why they're doing that, the charges of
But they
terrorism.
make statements like he just likes the attention to be on himself. He literally is just going beyond board. What exactly are you doing in court if you have nothing to do there?
If he said he had a case there, you not just wake up and go to court when you don't have any reason to be there. All right. And also, there's this thing about just giving someone that. Is it like benefit of the doubt now of, oh, we recognize this person. He's not going to come there and cause trouble. Sowore will not go there and start behaving violently because he knows he also has something to lose. But at the end of the day, of course, we have the people who support the federal government on one hand and people who support Nnamdi Kanu on the other hand. And all they've been saying is release Nnamdi Kanu and let him go. If the prosecuting side they've shown all of their evidence, they've shown their hand, we're waiting for the defense to present their case. And let's see what they have to say about all of those damning utterances.
Yes,
that
they
he
said
made
on
and
July
everything.
18. They'll present a no case submission, especially on terrorism charges, and that on the various past judgments, which includes one from 2017 that ruled IPOB was not an unlawful group, and another from 2022 which described his arrest in Kenya and return to Nigeria as a breach of his fundamental rights. Kanu reacted based on this, so he criticized the government for not appealing some of these rulings and instead resorted to secret legal steps. He also raised concerns over how his bail was revoked and how the Supreme Court later stated the revocation showed bias. But despite this, the High Court did not reinstate his bail when the case was returned to it. He also noted that a judge who once handled his case had recused herself, yet the case was reassigned to her. These were all the reactions that he stated after the no case submission, which obviously they had actually shifted to July 18. So based on all of this, though, the justice system ever since has been on the front burner. They feel that possibly his geographical location is the cause of this delay, the fact that he's not been given bail, some sort of political negotiation has not taken place like what happened with this guy, Isabella Bodejude, Miete Alakautel Hare leader, and what's his name also?
Sunday
Igboho as well, although Sunday Igboho is still on the wanted list anyways. But there's no opportunity yet provided for to know if when he returns,
even as the trial drags into his fourth year.
So in that particular regard, coming back to insecurity and our court cases, well, we'll say today that the Nigerian Navy did something well. They were able to destroy some of the weapon base for Boko Haram and bandits.
The IED factory, that's a good one. That's where they put together their weapons of mass destruction. At least the people who live in those areas and Nigerians as a whole can actually have a breather and just say, oh.
But we don't want, beyond.
But this is one out of many.
Beyond destroying the equipment and the base, we want to hear them not just repel these guys, neutralize these guys.
And being arrested, persecuted.
There is no point for prosecution, Chioma. There is no point for prosecution. When you prosecute, they reintegrate these guys. That's the problem. The Chief of Defense Staff said there are moles in the Nigerian military. Why won't there be moles?
And if they know they are moles, why not actually put stuff and things in place to
there is
fish
no
them
putting.
out?
The moles are obviously those who have been reintegrated. It's as simple as broad daylight. That's basically what it is. There's no need to possibly give a different profile or different tag to it. You integrate these individuals.
This non-kinetic approach that they keep talking about.
If it works, good. But so far, it's not been 70% okay. It's not even been 20% okay. What are the measures given to these individuals that you make them ensure that they don't go back to doing this? Or they're not utilized. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. So they are within, they're still giving information out there and they're still recruiting. So if that is the case, why is that measure not even extended to other persons you consider caring about this mayhem? If it were others, they'll shoot at sight. There's no point for you to even drop your weapons. We saw a reconciliatory measure with the Nigerian military and some of these terrorists. Very recently, we saw the videos looking for how they can adhere to peace. So what then happens after that?
I feel so sad for the Nigerian soldiers who have to be at the forefront of this war, and then they catch these people, bring them back, expect to be rewarded, expect to be told you have done well, and they get an order from above, and then they say, oh, you take them to so place, and the next day you see somebody that you have captured again. You recall when someone also came out and made a video and said, I saw the bandit that kidnapped me in the mosque. Like we're doing prayers together, you know, so People cannot have that sense of security, even when the government tries to say, oh, we will secure you, we are trying our best, we're doing our best. Nigerians don't see them as doing their best, because at the end of the day, these people who are not supposed to see the sky again
At all.
are moving freely.
Exactly. That's very, very, would I say, unfortunate. Choma, I would say we need to wrap up right now.
We
The
do need
world
to
is
wrap
at
up.
6. My name is Esther Wachuku.
And my name is Choma Innocent. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Good evening. See you for the evening rush at precisely 7 o'clock.